Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all having a great day. I know it's been a while, but today I'm going to be reacting to Jaiden Animation's most recent video. I found out I have ADHD. Now, as someone with ADHD myself, I can only assume this is going to be a very relatable and very funny video. And I think lots of people out there probably agree we probably saw this coming because Jaiden is obviously a very creative person. And there's actually a strong link between being creative and being neurodivergent in some way, whether you're autistic or you have ADHD or dyslexic or what have you. So this makes a lot of sense. I am curious as to why it took her such a long time to figure this out though. Hopefully we'll get an answer. The link to Jaiden's original video will be in the description below. Please like and subscribe. Without further ado, let's get watching this.
Do you ever think to yourself, man, why is it so hard for me to just do the things I need to do?
Yeah.
And focus, and remember things, and manage my time, and be organized, and remember things, and not get sidetracked. Ha! Yeah, me neither. When I was a kid, I was pretty much the picture.
Oh man, I can't imagine anyone's ADHD being that bad.
Imagine like being so frazzled by having ADHD that you forget to pay taxes and you get arrested.
I wouldn't be surprised if that happened once, but I can still see it as highly unlikely.
Perfect depiction of a good student. I was well organized, always turned in my work on time, got good grades. I even did my homework on Fridays instead of procrastinating until Sunday night. Sure, I didn't like studying and found it hard to focus during it, but who didn't? Saying all those qualities put together, that doesn't sound like the brain of someone with any kind of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, does it?
No. No, it doesn't, but you'd be surprised. Lots of people with ADHD, we are actually capable of focusing on lots of things, whether it's school or whether it's like an intense interest of ours, but sometimes we just do struggle with focusing on things that we don't particularly enjoy or that we don't understand.
Well behaved, didn't feel like I struggled much in school, and didn't cause any trouble.
Okay.
That is, up until I moved out of my parents' house for the first time to go to college. Gradually, I started slipping. I began skipping classes a bit when I just didn't feel like going, would wait until the last moment to start classwork, and lost a lot of motivation because I wasn't interested in any of my schoolwork. But overall...
Yeah, that's kind of like what I was saying before. It's like, sometimes people with ADHD can focus on things that they just don't really can relate to or they don't really care about very much, so it's understandable. But I'm wondering why college specifically caused her to start to like sidetrack and, you know, slide down when it comes to attention. Is it
because like her parents were like really rigid, or did her parents really help her stay focused? Hopefully she'll be able to provide some answers.
Even though it was pretty out of character for me, I chalked it all up to the fact I was simply over going to school. At the same time, my YouTube was really kicking off, and all I wanted to do was that. Of course, I wasn't going to be as good of a student when the silly YouTube videos were doing numbers. I finished a single year of college and convinced my parents to let me take a gap year to see where this YouTube thing can take me. Spoiler alert, the gap year turned into me never going back. I'm a college dropout. So great, I've eliminated the boring school part of my life that weighs me down. Now I can go back to being organized with my new exciting passion job, which entails being my own boss and having to manage and assign myself all of my own responsibilities 24/7.
Wow, this sounds like kind of like a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Because many people who are neurodivergent, sometimes we do well when we have like control of things, but sometimes we also do have difficulty when it comes to assigning our own responsibility. Like, I need to do this, this, and this today, and sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't work out. So I can see this as kind of like a mixed bag type of situation.
Why are the voices not getting quieter? It's almost like everything was going backwards. I was having a much harder time staying organized and focused. If I didn't want to do a certain type of work, I would have to shackle myself down in basically an isolation chamber to be able to get it done.
Wow.
If I found a new interest, it was all I could think about. And why is it so easy to suddenly be on your roof watching a YouTube video on how to know when you need new shingles? I really didn't get it.
Wow, I mean, that's understandable. Not the last part, though. I've never, like, ended up on a rooftop before because of a YouTube video. But yeah, I can understand, like, sometimes I'll try to have something I need to do today. Like, sometimes, for example, sometimes I'll think, oh yeah, I am definitely going to make a reaction YouTube video today.
And then the whole day goes by, and I'm just like, watching random stuff on YouTube. So
So it's actually pretty easy to get distracted.
Me had it held together more than current me. What went wrong? I could look back and recognize how everything used to be so perfect and easy. Look at tiny Jaiden and all her ducks in that row. I used to color code every single binder I owned, and now I don't even know where I placed the $20 I literally just had in my hand 3 minutes ago. I
Wow.
haven't even left the room. Genuinely, where could it f***ing go? Despite feeling like I was downward spiraling for multiple years, I never suspected it could be something related to a genetic neurodevelopmental disorder. I just thought I wasn't trying hard enough and being lazy.
Ah, man, yeah. That's actually a really common thing, too, what she just said about thinking she was lazy and not trying. That's something that many people with ADHD and neurodivergent people in general, we often get not only from within ourselves, but from other people, too. If we don't perform the way society says that we should,
They're like, you're not trying hard enough. You're lazy. You're just a slacker.
and we internalize that, and sometimes we put that pressure on ourselves, especially if we did well in the past. Like, it seems Jaiden did really well in the past when it came to being organized, but now it seems like she's struggling, so she's probably putting all this negative self-talk on herself. But if anyone out there is struggling with ADHD or autism or any other neurodevelopmental condition, know it's not your fault. You are trying your hardest, and there's always ways that you can improve. It's never hopeless.
Or applying myself like I used to. Oh, the woes of turning into an adult, I suppose. Maybe the best years of your life truly are in high school. How upsetting. I didn't even enjoy those either. But then one day I got a text from my brother. I got diagnosed with ADHD. It was a pretty big surprise for me because growing up, he never really seemed to show any of the typical symptoms you associate with ADHD.
Okay.
You know, people would always describe ADHD to me as super hyper kids who would run around the room and scream and generally be a lot. That wasn't my problem.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad that she mentioned that, the fact that it's a surprise, because ADHD isn't always like that stereotypical representation. I mean, sure, lots of people are. Like, for example, when I was a kid, I was exceedingly hyperactive to the point that my mom had to constantly hold my hand when we went to the grocery store. Otherwise, I'd just be zooming in between the aisles nonstop, like the freaking Tasmanian devil who just chugged a whole gallon of Mountain Dew. So it's understandable, but there's various types of ADHD too. I mean, there's like the primarily hyperactive type where I was like a kid, but you also have the primarily inattentive type, or a mixture, which maybe that's what's going on with Jaiden's brother.
He was quiet and well behaved like I was. But when he started explaining his symptoms, the gears started turning. Yeah, I've always struggled a lot with focusing in school and having things hold my attention when it's boring. But like, I could hyperfixate on things I'm interested in and get really passionate about that stuff.
Yeah.
Hearing him talk about his
That's another point, like I was saying before. People who have ADHD, as well as I think lots of neurodivergent people, we often struggle with things that are boring, that we just have to do. But if we have something that grabs our attention, we can hyper-focus. It's kind of like the other side of the coin when it comes to having ADHD.
you can really be hyper-focused on things you like, but have great difficulty with the things that you don't. And it's really hard to apply that focus to things that we just don't care about so much.
So this is understandable and relatable.
personal symptoms of ADHD made a lot of sense, and I felt very freshly educated on the topic. And you'd think
Education
that I
juice.
would immediately start looking into getting a diagnosis for myself, because if you were paying attention, my brother's experiences all sounded very similar to the same struggles I've been having in my own life, but
Yeah.
related to work instead of school, because I dropped out. But nope, I was just like, good for you, bro, happy for you. Or, I'm sorry, I don't know. Anyway, back to struggling to simply open up my drawing program as if 2 blocks of iron were welded to my wrists.
Yeah, that's understandable that you might like just keep going down the path you were going before, just struggling with it, but you definitely should seek like a diagnosis, because if you're neurodivergent, if you suspect you're neurodivergent, if you suspect you have ADHD or you're autistic or what have you,
Don't just go through day-to-day life without knowing,
get a doctor's opinion. If you can afford to get a diagnosis, get one, because it will help you out greatly. And then you can take steps to improve your life.
Balance of brain chemicals? Nah, this just happens from time to time. It's normal. Just the
No, it's
laziness
not.
kicking in. I hate Mondays, am I right? Even though I didn't instantly think there was a possibility of me also having ADHD, the mental seed was planted. It's genetic, so I knew subconsciously it ran in the bloodline. It took a few years after my brother was diagnosed for me to really sit down with myself and consider that I, too, could have ADHD.
Oh, good for you, Jaden. Good for you. This should be just a lesson for anyone out there. Like I said, like just recently, you should, if you suspect you're neurodivergent, seek a doctor and see what happens, and it'll probably make things a lot easier for you.
Shocking revelation, I know. Foreshadowing, where did you come from? Things in the focus and productivity department were just getting worse and worse. I had the attention span of a cartoon dog, would completely forget things as soon as they entered my head, would hyperfixate on random stuff like an addict, and there was constant civil war happening inside my head to get one thing done, even though I knew it would only take like 15 minutes. You don't understand.
That sounds definitely relatable. And Jaden, I actually do understand. I mean, even when it comes to simple things, sometimes I struggle with it, and I know it won't take long. Like, for example, making a YouTube video for me, since I have such a relatively simple layout, I just have one camera, one light. Depending on how long it takes, it can maybe, like, filming a video maybe could take at most like a half hour. But it takes me a while to get started. It could take me multiple hours, even after I set an alarm on my phone to like start a reaction video at 9 o'clock, and it could be like close to noon by the time I actually get started on it. So yeah, I understand. I think lots of people out there understand.
Feels like physical torture to make myself sit down and lip sync a simple scene, like most of the time. The thing I've been doing for 10 years at this point and am definitely used to doing. And yeah, once I've gotten going, then I'm honed in and you have to pry me away from it with a crowbar. I'm aware of that part. But nah, I'm still gonna scrap with myself to plant my ass in that chair because I don't even know why at this point.
Yeah, this just seems like so complete relatable. And that definitely is the case, I think, for many folks who have ADHD. It's like, it can take us a long time to get started on something, but once we do,
We can be hyper-focused, especially if it's something we like.
for example, if I start making a reaction video and I get started on it, it will take maybe a couple hours to do all the editing, but I will not stop. I will be focused until it is done right. So this makes total sense for me.
Biggest thing holding me back from feeling like I had ADHD has always been the simple memory of being in school and having my shit together. I know what it feels like to be on top of things and to be organized. I had it all in the palm of my little child hand. I just needed to summon it again with a bit more effort. But a light switched off in my brain and suddenly I'm just not capable of the things I used to be. And
Aw.
it feels pathetic. Simple tasks are such a mental burden, it feels like I'm out of control but can't do anything about it. So,
Yeah, Jane. I think lots of people with ADHD definitely can relate to that. It's like you desperately want to be better, you want to be focused, but sometimes it seems you just can't. Even in the best of circumstances, it can sometimes be difficult. So just know you're not alone, Jaden. And that goes for anyone else out there who's watching this who has ADHD. You're not alone, and it seems hopeless, but from my experience, it's never completely hopeless. There's always something that you can do.
finally, I figured I would try and get myself diagnosed.
Good.
What did I have to lose? If anything, they just tell me, no, you don't have ADHD. Try a little harder and stop complaining.
Ugh.
And yes, of course it took me like 8 months after deciding to get diagnosed to schedule the actual appointment.
Wow.
What did you expect? That's like the first checkmark box on the ADHD list.
True.
I started seeing a psychologist and he would ask the typical, do you have a hard time focusing? And I'd go, yeah, like this one time yesterday, and then he writes something down as I continue rambling on this hyper-specific example way too long for a neurotypical person. I met with him for a few weeks, and then it came down to diagnosis day.
Ooh.
The nerves, man. I was so ready for him to say I'm a normal person who needs to suck it up. But instead, he was like, okay, so yeah, you definitely exhibit symptoms of someone with the inattentive type of ADHD.
Awesome.
And autism. Yippee! My struggles are just
Wait, did he just say and autism? Let me just double check with that.
Yeah, you definitely exhibit symptoms of someone with the inattentive type of ADHD and autism. Yippee! My struggles are justified.
All right, that's nice. It's nice that she actually finally got a diagnosis and she can understand why she's struggling so much. And yeah, about the like whole little under the breath thing about autism. Yeah, that actually is a pretty good point because lots of times like having ADHD can also co-occur with other conditions like autism. Apparently there's like I think there's a fairly strong link between the two. They're not always inherited together, but sometimes they are. I mean, like if you know me from my previous videos, you know that I'm also autistic. So it makes sense that Jaden potentially could be autistic as well. So that's actually pretty cool. I'm glad that she made that little reference there.
Not crazy. Wait, what was that last part? He explained all the different ways ADHD affects me and the different areas I struggle with compared to others. He even gave me a 37-page document of his conclusions and information
Wow.
on how my brain works, with graphs and pictures. I've read through it all a bunch of times now, and it's already really helped me understand how I tick. I call him the
The autism docs. But you know, that's nice. It's nice that the doctor that he was able to help Jaden. It's nice to see that Jaden is taking all of this in stride and able to understand it and is really just accepting it because that's the first thing you need to do when you get a diagnosis. You need to accept the diagnosis. Because, you know, misdiagnoses happen, but if someone is a professional, like a psychologist or psychiatrist, and they've been working for like decades, more likely than not, they're probably correct. So, yeah, just make sure you understand and accept the diagnosis, because being in denial about it won't help at all.
autism docs, but I'm not gonna get into that side of the diagnosis. Let's just brush that one away for now. There's
Okay.
a couple types of ADHD you can have: hyperactive, inattentive, and combined,
Yeah.
which is both hyperactive and inattentive. Hyperactive is the type people typically go to when they think of a loud kid who can't sit still. People with this kind normally need to fidget, have low patience, tend to talk a lot, and have trouble staying seated, especially when they're expected to, like in a meeting or
Yep, that pretty much described me when I was a little kid. Before I got on medication, that was just like me. Constantly swimming around, running around, causing a ruckus. That is pretty much me, childhood me in a nutshell.
school. Inattentive is the one where someone experiences difficulty in focus, memory, organization, has a low attention span. That's the one I have. It's self-explanatory, but if you have the combined type of ADHD, then you got it all. ADHD jackpot right there, my friend. I brought up
Now I definitely, since I'm older and I've been on medication for a while, I definitely identify more as the primarily inattentive type, because usually I'm not very hyperactive at all. I mean, I'm a fairly low-key person. I might get like a little bit excited talking too much if it's something that I care about, but like, just in day-to-day life, I'm usually kind of like even-keeled, kind of like mild-mannered, and I just usually am not a very hyperactive person. But based on how I was as a kid, I probably could have been mixed type, but now I'm definitely more inattentive.
the appointments that I used to be such a good kid in school with seemingly zero ADHD symptoms, and how that part has always confused me. And he had a couple hypotheses about it.
Okay.
One, since my mom has always been a big source of my organizational influence, I was able to depend and lean on her for the majority of my school life for it. I felt like I was naturally capable of staying on top of things because she was right behind me the whole time, reminding
nice.
me and guiding me through stuff. So when I moved out, everything started crumbling, which lines up pretty
To see, like, flashback Jane just falling in the background is kind of funny, but, you know, she has a point. I mean, parental influence definitely helps. My mom definitely helped me. She's the one who, like, helped me get, like, a diagnosis and get medication, but that totally makes sense. I mean, if your mom is really organized, or any parent is very organized, and you rely on your parent, then most likely you'll go through a good chunk of your life without realizing that you have ADHD or you're autistic or what have you. So this makes total sense.
perfectly to when I did start struggling. Another explanation he gave was the fact that ADHD affects women differently than men,
Okay?
which is also less researched. Love to hear that one. Not only do
Yeah, that is true. I'm pretty sure that's also the case for autism, because autism is not very well researched in women. And so the information is kind of biased and incomplete. It's more often than not thought to be something that affects boys and men, but like being autistic, anyone potentially could be born autistic.
You don't have to have a Y chromosome to be autistic. And the same thing with ADHD.
Or any neurodevelopmental condition. You can just be a human and you could potentially be born with that condition. So I'm glad that at least now more people are being aware of that. But for the longest time, it was just assumed that only dudes can have ADHD or only dudes could be autistic. So it's nice to see the progress.
Women tend to be able to mask their symptoms better than guys, so
Okay.
it goes much more unnoticed. But they also experience ADHD differently. And research says there's a chance it can just start affecting women later in life. I'm no ADHD scientist, though. That's just what I've been told by specialists. I don't
Okay.
know. I've just got the dang thing. Either way, those two explanations make a lot of sense to me and
Good.
have since put my weird ADHD imposter syndrome to rest. I didn't really think that getting a diagnosis would change much about how I go about my life. But since getting my ADHD certificate and lollipop, it's completely revolutionized how I think and go about getting things done. It's
You know, that is really nice to hear. I mean, that makes total sense. I mean, you can't really truly understand the way your brain works if you don't really have a term for it, and it'll be hard to make changes if you don't know, oh yeah, this is what's going on in here. So a diagnosis is key, and I know it's not a luxury that everyone can afford. Lots of people, especially like here in the States, unfortunately, many times people of color and people who live in like low income communities, unfortunately, don't have access to a diagnosis, which means there are countless millions of people struggling and don't understand why. So it's nice to see that Jaden was able to get a diagnosis.
still hard to get my ass into gear when I need to do one normal thing that's not difficult, but I'm much less hard on myself and will strike almost like these kinds of mental deals to loophole myself into getting things done.
Okay.
Like, for example, if I really don't want to edit a video, I'll say to myself, okay, I know it's gonna be super hard for me to immediately start that task, so I'll get myself into the mindset of getting things done by doing a simple other task I don't find difficult, like cleaning my room. That way, I'll feel productive and can transition that into tackling the original task much easier.
That's actually a pretty good idea, and that makes tons of sense. You have to get the ball rolling because it's hard for anyone, especially someone who's neurodivergent, to immediately start something, especially if that thing happens to be laborious or difficult. So it's a good idea to start small and then somehow transfer that energy into doing what you really need to do. So that's actually a good tip.
Doesn't always work, but it's the mindset change and overall understanding that sometimes I'm gonna have to go about things in different ways. That's helped me a lot.
Good.
Also, after being diagnosed with ADHD, I didn't have much desire to get medicated. I figured just knowing I have it would be enough to get things into
I kinda
gear,
doubt
and
that.
I didn't really need medication that badly. But the content creator in me also thought, well, if I'm gonna write a script about having ADHD, it would be nice to be able to talk about what it's like to be medicated, even just for a day. So I got prescribed good old classic instant release Adderall. Instant
right.
release means I don't have to take it every day. I can just take it when I need to get stuff done. It affects me immediately and then wears off after a few hours. There's also extended release, which is the kind you take every day and gives you a constant steady stream of medication. It wasn't until I had the Adderall in my hands when I realized the idea of taking it for the first time made me nervous. Like,
Okay, I'm sorry. I guess she was probably going to explain why. But in a way, it's kind of understandable. I mean, if this is your first time ever taking medication, potentially it can be daunting because you are like just introducing something to your body that you've never done before. And even though it's necessary in order to keep your brain functioning, it is kind of a little unnerving, especially if you're in Jaden's position where you're an adult and you're just starting to take it. Like, I was on medication since I was like 3. So for me, no big deal. Just take it every day and do what you gotta do. But I can understand her concern.
what is this thing gonna do to me? I have so many friends with ADHD. Honestly, a higher ratio than friends without it. That's how it goes in content creation. All these MFs have it. They were all telling me that it's awesome, how you'll take it and immediately feel like a god, and you can do anything, and it's incredible. And yeah, that sounds great, but also like, what the hell? What do you mean I take this little pill and suddenly all of my problems seemingly disappear and I gain superpowers? That's scary.
I think it's a little bit of an exaggeration. I mean, from my personal experience, taking medication does help a lot, but it doesn't immediately make things better. I mean, I sometimes still struggle with keeping myself motivated or keeping up with things, even if I write them down or put them in my calendar. Medication definitely helps, but it's not a cure-all. It doesn't instantaneously make your problems go away. It can make your symptoms more manageable, but it's not a quick cure.
That sounds like the thing every adult in a 20-mile radius warned us about when we were kids. Am I gonna feel like a completely different person? I don't know if I'm ready to experience immortality. I put off taking Adderall for so long because I was irrationally scared of the tiny blue pill, but coincidentally, I really needed to get a script done. If I take too long to write a video script, then the team runs out of work to do, and then I have a bunch of people sitting around and waiting for me to give them more work so they can pay their bills and survive and stuff.
I'd say it's a pretty good motivation to get you to consider taking the medication, Jaden. Yeah, if you're in this position where you have a lot of people who depend on you and need your guidance, or in this case, content, you definitely should make a habit of being on top of things and trying to be organized. So I think this might be the tipping point where she decides, you know what, I'm going to take the Adderall.
For the freaking life of me, I just could not get myself to sit down and write that script. My body and soul found it mentally easier to backflip off a bridge than write words on the computer.
Wow.
After literally 2 months of my brain going, ooh, you better write that script, I won't let you enjoy a single moment of your life if you aren't writing that script. I don't wanna. Get up, go to the bridge. After that constant loop, I finally swallowed my fears and took my first Adderall.
Okay.
I had talked to James a lot about what Adderall is like since he's been on it for a few years now. And after I took one, I was messaging him like, I did it. I ate an Adderall. How long does it normally take to start? How do I know? What do I do? And he was helping me a lot and giving me tips. Then, like 20 minutes later, I felt it. All the non-stop thoughts going on in my brain went silent. I could think.
Well, that's good. Nice to see that the medication just worked like it was supposed to, or at least it seems like it worked like it was supposed to. Like it just said, the voices are quiet, and that's good. That just makes total sense, and I'm glad it's working out for her. And hopefully it continues to work out for her in the future.
Clearly, and in like a line. My mind
Good.
wasn't racing a mile a minute. I was able to sit behind my laptop and write. It was
Good.
incredible. I was messaging all my friends about it the entire time. I can write my script and not get distracted. I don't have to take a mental break every 10 minutes. I can remember things. Kelsey sent me a message and I thought, I'll check that in a bit. And I remembered to check in a bit.
Good.
And respond. When I opened a new tab to look something up, I didn't go down a random unrelated rabbit hole. I picked up my phone to check something and didn't impulsively scroll Twitter for an hour. I can write words.
No, this is really great. So far, so good. It seems like this is really a very positive thing for Jaden. And anyone out there who has ADHD, you should always keep your options open. You should always be open to medication or trying new things to help you out, because there is no good reason to struggle when help is just like a potential doctor's visit away.
So easily, how am I doing this? What do you mean I can feel like this whenever I want if I just eat the tiny blue pill? I refuse to believe regular people can function like this on a day-to-day basis. No way. It wouldn't be fair. You guys don't have loud, non-stop voices in your heads preventing you from doing normal things? Come on, just admit it. You can't pick something up and immediately keep remembering what you were supposed to be doing with it.
Yeah, it's understandable to think that, especially because you really only have your own experience and maybe the experience of your friends. But yeah, neurotypical people in many cases can do stuff like that, Jaden. They can usually just drop something off, cooking or whatever, then at the same time switch to a phone call or whatever, and just be able to get back to what they were originally doing. Not always, but a lot of times they can. It's just, I guess, how their brain works. So I envy neurotypical people when it comes to that, but I also don't, because it's been shown that neurodivergent people tend to be very creative and interesting. Because no offense, neurotypical folks, lots of neurotypical people that I've met are not particularly interesting. I mean, some are, but a lot aren't. So it's kind of like give and take, I guess. I mean, you have struggled getting things done, but conversations are never boring.
Will always forget and feel crazy. Come on. Come on. I was so suspicious that on Adderall, either nothing would happen and I just wouldn't feel anything, or I would feel like I'm a totally different person experiencing some higher-than-life manic episode. But
Wow.
no, I just felt like myself, but with my shit together. And that's the part I couldn't believe. After 2 months of war, I finally was able to plant myself down and write my damn script. You want to know what script I wrote while experiencing Adderall for the first time?
What?
This
That
one. I was struggling to write a script about ADHD, and the thing that finally pulled it out of me was Adderall. Come, you gotta admit that's funny.
Yeah, that is kind of funny. Perfect irony, perfect humor. But yeah, I'm glad that the Adderall is working for her, and I hope that anyone out there who is also taking Adderall, I hope it's working for you, because, you know, sometimes some medication just doesn't work for some people. I mean, it usually does, but in some cases, some people are just really sensitive to medication. It might cause adverse side effects, so make sure you talk to your doctor if something seems off. Just don't avoid taking medication, and don't just always assume you have to take medication. Just, you know, talk to your healthcare provider and figure out what works best for you.
Yeah, it was great. I didn't think my head was loud before, or I was that impulsive, or had that hard of a time focusing. But now that I've been able to peacefully sit in one spot for hours and not need to take a break, or check social media, or get distracted by some stupid tangent I don't actually care about, yeah, this changes things. I still
Cool.
can't believe what I was able to accomplish. Writing a script in 3 hours.
Wow.
Compared to my typical 12 hours, aka
Ooh.
1
That is very impressive. It took like a quarter of the time, so she improved by like, what, 75%? She's 75% faster. That is just insane. I'm so glad that it worked for her so well. And also, to be honest, I don't think I would have the patience to work on a video for 12 hours. At least not yet, since I just don't have the equipment for it. But I don't know if I could, so, you know, props to her for being able to do it for such a long time at such a comparatively slow rate. But I'm glad she's gotten faster at doing it.
mediocre thing with no struggle at all. And you want to know what I did right after I wrote this script?
What?
I immediately got up and cleaned the birds' room without rotting in bed for 3 hours beforehand. I just went from one task to another without thinking about it. All you neurotypical people must be thinking I'm literally pathetic and useless, but I know my ADHD brethren are out of their chairs right now hearing that. I'm not standing.
Like, being able to focus from one task to another just is like one of the best feelings of relief that you can possibly have if you're neurodivergent and you're struggling with that type of thing. But yeah, seriously, neurotypical people,
Please don't look down at people who struggle with paying attention or going from one task to another. Don't look down on neurodivergent people.
just because we have difficulty with going from one task to another, it doesn't mean that we're not trying, or we're lazy, or we're subpar. Our strengths are just different, so try to be respectful if you could.
Before you all to give you scientific data and information on ADHD, or diagnose you, or even promote prescribed drugs. I'm just here to talk about a big and recent experience in my life, how much of an impact and effect it's had on me, and how awesome feeling normal is. Seriously,
Cool.
being able to take a deep breath in mental silence is incredible. Cherish that feeling if you don't have a neurodevelopmental disorder. It took me 26 years to realize my woes were not actually woes, but symptoms of brain chemical deficiency. I'm writing this video, all things considered, pretty recently after being diagnosed, and I'm still trying to learn how to rebuild my life in a way that lets me optimize my productivity and
You know, like, I'm glad that she phrased it like that, rebuilding your life, because in a way, receiving a diagnosis and getting medication is rebuilding your life, because before, you might be in a total state of disarray. You have no clue what's going on, you don't know why you're struggling, but then you get the diagnosis of ADHD or autism or dyslexia, and then you're like, oh, now it makes sense. Now I can actually move forward. So yeah, anyone out there who is or might, or you suspect you might have a neurodevelopmental condition, just do your research and always remember it's not your fault and there are things you can do to improve.
get things done at a normal level. But so far, I've come so much further than I thought I could simply by knowing what's going on up there in the old noodle.
Good.
And Adderall. If you're on the fence about being diagnosed with something, I get it. It's scary. It's scary to think you might have it, and it's also scary to think you might not have it.
True.
It's an odd place to be. But for me, having a concrete answer from a professional is what got me to finally stop feeling stuck in place and actually start moving forward again. It's been great. I'm excited to keep learning more things about how my mind works
Good.
and find new ways to improve my day-to-day life. Cheers to getting normal shit done.
Well, guys, that was another video by Jaiden Animations. Very funny, very relatable, and what she was saying was totally true, that it can be scary if you suspect you might have a neurodevelopmental condition, but it just makes more sense for you to seek a diagnosis and seek help. It makes a lot more sense than just struggling in silence for years. I mean, she said it took her like, what, 26 years to realize that something was up and to get the medication that she needed. So if you're going through some stuff like this, don't feel bad. Don't beat yourself up. Just try your best to get help and just rebuild your life, like she said. So overall, great video. Let me know in the comments below. Does anyone watching this have ADHD or is autistic or have any other neurodevelopmental condition? And how long did it take you to receive a diagnosis? And do you have any interesting or weird stories about your condition? If you guys have any recommendations for any other neurodivergent YouTubers, let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.